The portal stood like a giant tombstone on the dusty surface of Kepler 442b. It reached 50 meters into the pale orange sky, made of something that looked like metal but wasn't. Scientists from across the galaxy had been studying it for 3 years, and they still had no idea what it was made of or how it worked. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the massive structure. Even from a distance, she could see the strange symbols covering its surface. They seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them, shifting and changing like living things. "Impressive, isn't it?" asked Thelnax, her assigned guide. The Quillan scientist had 6 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. 2 of his arms gestured toward the portal while the others carried equipment. "It's incredible," Sarah said, adjusting her backpack. "Have you made any progress?" Thelnax made a sound that his translator rendered as a sigh. "None. Every species in the Galactic Council has tried to activate it. The Vexari sent their best energy manipulators. The collective brought computational minds that can process 1 billion calculations per second. Even the Kitharan, who have been exploring space for 100,000 years, got no response." Sarah nodded slowly. She had read all the reports during her 6-month journey from Earth. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Compared to these ancient civilizations, humans were like children playing with toys they barely understood. "So why bring me here?" Sarah asked as they walked toward the dig site. Thelnax's translator paused as if searching for the right words. "Political courtesy. Your government requested human representation on the research team. The council agreed, though." He trailed off. "Though they don't think we can help," Sarah finished. She had heard it all before. Humans were too emotional, too primitive, too new to space travel. Most aliens saw them as an interesting curiosity, not serious scientists. The dig site buzzed with activity. Researchers from dozens of species worked around the portal, setting up scanners and taking measurements. A group of crystalline Vexari floated near the portal's base, their bodies pulsing with rainbow light as they tried to commune with it. Nothing happened. Dr. Kravlan, the lead researcher, barely acknowledged Sarah when Thelnax introduced her. The insectoid scientist clicked his mandibles in what might have been greeting or dismissal. "You may set up your equipment in Sector 7, he said, pointing with one of his 4 arms toward an area far from the portal. "Try not to interfere with the primary research teams." Sarah bit back a response and nodded. She had expected this. Humans were always given the least important tasks, the furthest positions, the lowest priority. She set down her equipment and began assembling her scanner, trying not to feel disappointed. For 3 hours, she took basic measurements from her assigned position. The portal's surface temperature, electromagnetic readings, gravitational fluctuations. All the data had been collected 1,000 times before, but protocols were protocols. She worked methodically, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of scientific observation. As the planet's sun began to set, most of the researchers retreated to the climate-controlled tents. Sarah remained, wanting to finish her initial survey. She walked closer to the portal, carrying her portable scanner. The massive structure cast long shadows across the dig site. Up close, the portal was even more impressive. The symbols seemed to have depth, as if they were carved into infinite layers of material. Sarah reached out with one hand, not quite touching the surface, trying to gauge where to place her next sensor. The moment her hand came within inches of the portal, everything changed. Golden light erupted from the portal's surface, so bright that Sarah stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. The symbols began rearranging themselves, flowing like liquid across the structure. A sound filled the air, low and harmonic, like the universe itself was humming. Sarah fell to the ground, her scanner clattering beside her. The light was everywhere, warm and bright, making the entire portal glow like a captured star. "Impossible," someone shouted. Sarah couldn't tell who. Researchers came running from the tents, all staring at the portal in shock. The Vexari, who had been trying to activate the portal for weeks, floated backward, their light dimming in what Sarah recognized as confusion. Dr. Krevlan's mandibles clicked rapidly as he rushed forward with scanning equipment. The harmonic sound grew louder, resolving into something that almost sounded like words. Sarah's translator chirped, trying to process the signal. Then, clear as day, a voice spoke from within the portal. It spoke in English. "Finally," the voice said, warm and ancient and patient. "The inheritors have arrived." Every eye in the dig site turned to look at Sarah. She sat on the ground, her hand still extended toward the portal, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "What did you do?" Dr. Krevlon demanded, rushing toward her. His scanner was pointed at Sarah now, not the portal. "What did you activate?" "I didn't do anything," Sarah said, her voice shaking. I was going to set up a sensor." Thelnax helped her stand, his multiple arms steadying her. "Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine. Sarah looked at the portal. It still glowed with that golden light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Did it just speak English?" "Your language," confirmed a Vexari researcher, her voice tinkling like wind chimes. "It spoke in your primitive human tongue." The insult barely registered. Sarah was too busy staring at the portal. The symbols had completely rearranged themselves into patterns no one had seen before. Where the surface had been solid and impenetrable, it now rippled like water, as if inviting her to step through. Dr. Krevlon was shouting orders now, calling for security, for additional scanners, for the Galactic Council to be contacted immediately. Other researchers crowded around Sarah, asking questions in a dozen languages that her translator struggled to keep up with. "Everyone step back," commanded a voice. The dig site's security chief, a hulking Kresh warrior named Gormak, pushed through the crowd. "The human is to be quarantined immediately for examination." "I didn't do anything wrong," Sarah protested. But Gormak was already reaching for her arm. Before he could touch her, the portal's voice spoke again. "Do not fear, inheritor. You have done nothing but exist." "That is enough." The rippling surface of the portal seemed to reach out, tendrils of golden light extending into the air. Everyone stepped back except Sarah, who stood frozen, mesmerized by the beautiful, terrible light. "You carry within you the pattern we left behind," the voice continued, the echo of those who came before. "Step forward, child of Earth, and claim your inheritance. The paths between stars have waited long enough." Sarah looked around at the assembled researchers. Some looked afraid, others angry, a few curious. Thelnax gave her an encouraging gesture with two of his arms. Dr. Krevlon was speaking rapidly into a communicator, probably reporting to the council. She looked back at the portal, at the golden light and flowing symbols and rippling surface. Every scientist in her wanted to understand what was happening. Every human in her wanted to know why this ancient structure had chosen her species. But before she could move, alarms began blaring throughout the dig site. Red warning lights flashed from the perimeter sensors. "Ships approaching," someone shouted. "Multiple signatures, military configuration." On the horizon, Sarah saw them. Dark shapes against the orange sky, descending rapidly. Warships. Someone was coming. And she had a terrible feeling they weren't coming to talk. The portal pulsed brighter as if urging her forward. The voice spoke one last time, urgent now. "Decide quickly, inheritor. Others will try to take what was meant for you." The warships landed hard, their engines kicking up clouds of orange dust. Sarah watched as armored soldiers poured out, weapons ready. She recognized their uniforms from her briefings. Velcross Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. "Nobody move," barked the commander. A massive Velcross with scales like black metal. "This site is now under military jurisdiction. The portal is a threat to galactic security." Dr. Krevlon stepped forward, his mandibles clicking angrily. "This is a scientific expedition under Galactic Council protection. You have no authority here." "We have all the authority we need," the commander said, gesturing to his soldiers. They fanned out around the portal, surrounding the researchers. "The council debates while the universe burns." That portal activated for humans, the newest, most primitive species in the galaxy. This is clearly a malfunction or a trap. Sarah felt dozens of eyes on her again. She wanted to sink into the ground and disappear. The portal still glowed behind her, its light casting long shadows. "It's not a malfunction," Thelnax said quietly, but firmly. "The readings are clear. The portal recognized her species." "Impossible," snapped the commander. "Humans have barely left their own solar system. They have no claim to ancient technology." One of the Velcross soldiers moved toward Sarah, but the portal flared brighter. A wave of energy pushed outward, gentle but firm, stopping the soldier in his tracks. The voice spoke again, still in English. "The inheritor must not be harmed," the commander snarled. "Then we destroy the portal and the human with it. If we cannot use it, no one will." "Wait," Sarah shouted, surprising herself. "Just wait. Let me try something." Everyone stared at her. Even the portal seemed to pulse with curiosity. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped toward the rippling surface. Her legs felt like water, but she forced herself forward. If this portal chose humans, then I should be able to enter it, right? Let me go through. Let me find out why. Absolutely not, Dr. Krevlin said. We know nothing about what's on the other side. You could be killed instantly. Or I could find answers, Sarah countered. She looked at the Velcross commander. If I die, then you've solved your problem. If I survive, maybe I can learn why this is happening. The commander considered this, his scales rippling with thought. You have 5 minutes before we open fire on the portal. If it can be destroyed, it will be. Sarah didn't wait for anyone else to object. She walked straight toward the portal, her heart hammering in her chest. Behind her, she heard Thelnax calling her name, but she didn't stop. The golden light enveloped her. For a moment, Sarah felt like she was being pulled apart and put back together. Every atom in her body sang with energy. Then she was through. She stumbled and fell onto a smooth floor that glowed with soft blue light. Gasping, Sarah looked around and found herself in a vast chamber that seemed to stretch forever in all directions. Hundreds of portals lined the walls, each one dark and dormant. Where am I? She whispered. You are in the hub, said the voice, closer now. A figure materialized in front of her, made of light and geometric patterns. It looked vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifted form. I am the architect. I maintain the network. I have waited 4.7 million years for your arrival. Sarah climbed to her feet, her legs still shaking. Why humans? We're not special. We're barely even spacefaring. The architect tilted its head, the gesture almost amused. You are the echo of those who came before. The Wayfarers built this network billions of years ago to connect the galaxy. They were explorers, dreamers, creators. They believed that all species should be able to travel freely among the stars. What happened to them? Sarah asked. They ascended beyond the physical realm, the architect explained. But before they left, they encoded their consciousness pattern into the universe itself. Any species that evolved with similar traits would be recognized by the network. Sarah shook her head. But we're nothing like an advanced ancient civilization. We still have wars. We destroy our own planet. We can barely get along with each other, let alone other species. Yes, the architect said simply, just like the Wayfarers. That stopped Sarah cold. The architect continued. The Wayfarers were not perfect. They struggled with emotion and logic, with order and chaos, but they never stopped trying to understand, to connect, to hope. Your species carries the same pattern. You feel deeply. You create art and music for no practical reason. You form bonds with creatures different from yourselves. You look at the impossible and ask, why not, instead of why. Sarah thought about humanity, about their messy history, their constant conflicts, their refusal to give up even when things seemed hopeless. So we're really the inheritors? Every human who approaches the network will activate it, the architect confirmed. Your consciousness pattern matches the required frequency. No other species in the current galactic civilization shares this trait. That's going to cause problems, Sarah muttered. It already has, said a voice behind her. Sarah spun around to see Marcus Webb, her research partner, stumbling through the portal. Behind him came Thelnax, his 6 arms flailing as he tried to keep his balance. Both looked as shocked as Sarah felt. The Velcross started firing, Marcus gasped. We had to jump through. They're trying to destroy the portal. They cannot, the architect said calmly. The network protects itself. The portal on Kepler 442b has shut down. They can damage the structure, but the gateway is closed. Thelnax looked around the hub with all 6 eyes wide. This is incredible. There must be thousands of portals here. 100,042, the architect corrected. They connect to every corner of the galaxy. With this network, you can travel anywhere instantly. No ships needed. No years of journey time. The galaxy becomes small. Sarah felt the weight of those words. This was power beyond anything she could imagine. With this network, humanity could explore the entire galaxy. They could trade, learn, meet new species. Or they could conquer, control, dominate. Why show this to me? She asked the architect. I'm just a scientist. You are the first inheritor to reach the hub, the architect said. That makes you the keeper. You must decide how humanity will use the network. That's too much responsibility for one person, Sarah protested. Then share it with your species, the architect suggested. But decide quickly. 40 warships are converging on this location. They detected the energy signature when you activated the hub. They are coming to take the network by force. Marcus moved to a window that showed the space outside. Sarah joined him and felt her stomach drop. The architect was right. Dozens of ships were approaching, their weapons charging. How did they find us so fast? Marcus asked. The hub's location is not secret, the architect explained. It exists in deep space, in neutral territory. Many species have searched for it over the millennia. Most thought it was a myth. Your activation has proven it exists. Thelnax turned all 6 eyes to Sarah. What will you do? Sarah looked at the portals lining the walls. Each one represented a world, a civilization, a chance for connection or conflict. She thought about the Velcross commander who would rather destroy the portal than let humans have it. She thought about all the species who saw humanity as primitive and unworthy. The Wayfarers built this to connect people, Sarah said slowly, not to give one species power over others. A noble thought, the architect said. But nobility does not stop warships. You have 1 hour before they arrive. In that time you must decide, will you fight, will you flee, or will you negotiate? Can we negotiate with people trying to kill us? Marcus asked. Before anyone could answer, new alarms sounded throughout the hub. The architect's form flickered with concern. The Velcross Empire is broadcasting a message, it said. They are offering humanity a choice. Surrender control of the network to the Galactic Council, or face total war. Every human colony, every human ship, every human world will be targeted. Sarah felt cold. Her people had barely started exploring the galaxy. A war with the Velcross Empire would be devastating. They're bluffing, Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced. They are not, Thelnax said quietly. The Velcross do not bluff. If they say they will wage war, they will. Sarah looked at the architect. Can this network be used as a weapon? It can do many things, the architect replied carefully. The Wayfarers built defenses into the system. The hub cannot be easily destroyed. But using the network as a weapon would go against everything the Wayfarers believed. And if we don't defend ourselves, we'll be destroyed or enslaved, Sarah said. She walked to the center of the hub, where a control console materialized from the floor. Holographic displays showed her the approaching fleet, the portal network, and streams of data she barely understood. Teach me, she told the architect. I need to know everything about this network. We have 1 hour? Then we have 1 hour to figure out how to survive this without becoming what they fear we'll become. The architect inclined its head. As you command, Keeper. But know this. Whatever choice you make here will echo through history. The galaxy is watching, and they will judge your species by your actions in the next hour. Sarah took a deep breath and placed her hands on the console. It responded to her touch, lighting up with information. Outside the hub, warships gathered like vultures. The countdown had begun. The holographic displays showed Sarah more information than her brain could process. Ship positions, energy readings, portal locations, historical data from civilizations that had been dust for millions of years. The architect stood beside her, patient and glowing. Focus on what matters now, the architect advised. The fleet will arrive in 43 minutes. Sarah nodded and tried to calm her racing thoughts. Show me the hub's defenses. The display shifted. Sarah saw energy shields, automated weapon systems, and something called a displacement field that could teleport attacking ships away from the hub. The technology was incredible, but also terrifying. She could destroy the entire fleet with a thought. The Wayfarers must have faced threats too, Sarah said. How did they handle situations like this? The architect was silent for a moment. They made mistakes. They tried to control too much, protect too much. Eventually, they realized that true security comes not from weapons, but from understanding. That's a nice philosophy, Marcus said from where he was studying another console. But it doesn't stop missiles. Thelnax had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Sarah, may I suggest something? Not all species support the Velcross position. Many smaller civilizations are tired of the old empires controlling everything. If you could contact them, offer them access to the network. You mean make allies, Sarah said. Yes, the Wayfarers wanted connection. Perhaps the network itself is your best defense. Sarah looked at the portal array. Thelnax was right. The network connected 100,000 worlds. Surely not all of them wanted to see it destroyed or controlled by one empire. Architect, can I send a message through the portals to multiple worlds at once? Yes. The network can broadcast across all connected nodes simultaneously. Though many portals have not been activated in millions of years, they can still receive transmissions. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. She was about to speak to the entire galaxy. Open a channel, she said. The air in front of her shimmered. A recording sphere appeared, its light blinking to show it was active. Sarah suddenly felt very small and very young. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, she began, her voice shaking slightly. I'm a human and I'm speaking to you from the hub, the center of the ancient portal network. Some of you are hearing my voice for the first time in millions of years. Others are hearing about the network for the first time ever. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The network chose humanity as its inheritors. I don't fully understand why, but I know what the Wayfarers wanted when they built it. They wanted to connect people, to make the galaxy smaller, to help everyone travel and learn and grow together. Marcus gave her an encouraging nod. She continued. Right now, the Velcross Empire is demanding that humans surrender the network. They say we're too primitive to be trusted with it. Maybe they're right. We're new to space. We make mistakes. We're emotional and unpredictable. But that's exactly why the network chose us. Sarah felt herself getting stronger as she spoke. The Wayfarers weren't perfect either. They struggled and failed and tried again. That's what makes us their echo. Not perfection. The attempt to connect despite our flaws. She looked directly at the recording sphere. So here's what I'm proposing. The network belongs to everyone. Not to humanity. Not to any one empire or species. It's a tool for all of us. I'm offering free access to any species that wants to use it for peaceful purposes. Exploration, trade, cultural exchange, research. The only requirement is that you use it to build connections, not destroy them. The recording sphere blinked faster, showing her message was being transmitted across thousands of worlds. The Velcross fleet will be here soon, Sarah said. They're going to try to take the network by force. I hope they don't. I hope they'll choose to join us instead. Because that's what the network is really about, choosing to reach out instead of striking out. She ended the transmission. For a moment, the hub was silent. That was either very brave or very foolish, the architect said. Possibly both. Definitely both, Marcus agreed. The Velcross aren't going to like being called out like that. No, Thelnak said, his scales shimmering with what Sarah had learned was excitement. But look, he pointed to one of the displays. Portal after portal was lighting up across the network. Responses were flooding in from hundreds of species. Some were words of support. Others were requests for more information. A few were angry rejections. But they were responding. The Luminary accept your offer, the architect reported. They are sending ships to help defend the hub. So are the Zendo. And the Kresh warrior clans and many others. Sarah felt a surge of hope. How many? 317 species have pledged support so far. The number is growing. Marcus whistled low. You just started a galactic movement in 5 minutes. Or a galactic war, Sarah said quietly. But she straightened her shoulders. Architect, when those allied ships arrive, can you guide them through the portal safely? Yes, I can coordinate portal access for defensive purposes. Then do it. And keep the defensive systems online, but don't fire unless absolutely necessary. If we can end this without killing anyone, that's what we'll do. The minutes ticked by. The Velcross fleet drew closer. Sarah watched the displays, her hands gripping the console. Ships began emerging from portals throughout the hub area, luminary vessels that looked like crystalline sculptures, Zendu ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, Kresh warships bristling with weapons but flying under flags of alliance. The Velcross are hailing us, the architect announced. Put them through, Sarah said. A hologram appeared showing Warmaster Krelvak, the Velcross fleet commander. His scales were blood red and his eyes were cold. Human, he said, his voice like grinding stone. You have made a grave mistake. By offering free access to the network, you have destabilized the entire galactic order. You have no authority to make such promises. The Wayfarers gave me the authority, Sarah replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. And the network agrees. It's programmed to accept any peaceful species. I'm not giving away something that isn't mine. I'm opening something that was always meant to be open. You are a child playing with forces you don't understand. Krelvak snarled. We will take the network by force if necessary. Stand down or we will destroy your ships and breach the hub. Sarah saw Marcus tense beside her. Thelnax's scales shifted to a worried gray color. On the displays she could see the Velcross fleet powering weapons. I don't want to fight you, Sarah said, but I won't hand over the network to be controlled by any one empire. The Wayfarers didn't build this for conquest. They built it for connection. Then you choose war, Krelvak said. The hologram vanished. Alarms blared throughout the hub. Incoming fire, the architect reported calmly. Raising shields. The hub shuddered as energy weapons struck the shields. Sarah watched the displays in horror as the battle began. The Allied ships engaged the Velcross fleet, weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space. Sarah, we need to use the defensive systems, Marcus urged. We can end this quickly. By killing them? Sarah asked. That's not the answer. It might be the only answer, Marcus said. Sarah looked at the battle raging outside. Ships were taking damage. People were dying. And she had the power to stop it. The hub's weapons could vaporize the Velcross fleet in seconds. But if she did that, she would become exactly what they feared. A primitive species with too much power, willing to destroy anyone who challenged them. Architect, she said suddenly, can the displacement field move ships without harming them? Yes, it can relocate them anywhere within range. And the portals? Can we use them to redirect weapons fire? That is unconventional, but possible. Sarah felt an idea forming. And that's what we do. We don't destroy them. We confuse them. Frustrate them. Make fighting us pointless. That's insane, Marcus said. That's human, Thelnak said, and his scales shifted to a hopeful blue. Sarah's hands flew over the console, the architect feeding her information faster than she thought possible. She opened portals in front of enemy weapons, sending their own fire back at them harmlessly. The energy dissipating in empty space. She used the displacement field to move boarding parties away from Allied ships, dropping them in escape pods far from the battle. The Velcross fleet found itself fighting an enemy that wouldn't fight back the way they expected. Every aggressive move was turned back on itself or redirected. Ships that tried to ram the hub found themselves teleported to the other side of the battlefield. Weapons that fired found their shots disappearing into portals. It was chaos. Organized, intentional chaos. They're getting frustrated, the architect observed. Their tactics are designed for conventional warfare. This is unprecedented. On the displays, Sarah saw Krelvak's flagship trying to break through the Allied lines. She made a decision that terrified her. Architect, can you trap that flagship in a stasis field without harming the crew? Yes, they will be suspended but unharmed. Do it. Blue energy surrounded Krelvak's ship, freezing it in space. The War Master's face appeared on the hologram, frozen mid-snarl, unable to move or give orders. The rest of the Velcross fleet faltered, seeing their commander captured without a single shot that could kill. Sarah opened a channel to all ships, both Allied and enemy. Stop, please, just stop. This doesn't have to continue. The harvester ships moved through space like sharks through water. They were huge, at least twice the size of the largest Velcross warship, and they seemed to drink in the light around them. Sarah felt cold just looking at them. What are the harvesters? She asked the architect. The glowing figure's form flickered rapidly, showing what Sarah had learned was deep concern. They are ancient machines created by a species that died long before the Wayfarers. Their purpose is to prevent any civilization from achieving transcendence. When the Wayfarers activated too many portals, the Harvesters awakened and drove them from physical existence. They attacked the Wayfarers? Marcus said, his face pale. The Wayfarers were forced to evolve beyond their bodies to escape, the architect explained. The Harvesters cannot destroy consciousness itself, but they can destroy any physical form that tries to ascend. They have been sleeping in dark space for millions of years. Your activation of the hub has awakened them again. Sarah watched the displays in horror. The harvester ships were approaching both the hub and the gathered fleets. They made no attempt to communicate. They simply moved forward with terrible purpose. Can we stop them? She asked. The Wayfarers could not. What makes you think you can? Before Sarah could answer, the harvesters opened fire. But they didn't target just the hub, they attacked everything. Allied ships, Velcross vessels, even the frozen flagship containing Krelvak. The weapons were like nothing Sarah had seen before, beams of energy that seemed to unmake matter itself. A luminary ship dissolved into nothing. A Kresh warship simply ceased to exist. The stasis field around Krelvak's flagship flickered and failed as massive energy struck it. Shields at maximum, the architect announced, but they will not hold forever against this assault. Sarah's mind raced. Everyone out there, species that had been enemies minutes ago, were all dying to the same threat. The harvesters didn't care about politics or territory or who controlled the network. They just wanted to destroy anyone who might use it. Release Krelvak, Sarah ordered, and open a channel to all ships. The stasis field vanished. Krelvak's hologram appeared, and for the first time Sarah saw fear in the War Master's eyes. "What are those things?" he demanded. "Ancient machines that want to kill all of us," Sarah said bluntly. "We can fight each other later. Right now we need to work together or we all die." Krelvak's scales rippled. She could see him struggling with the idea. But another Velcross ship exploded on the displays and he made his decision. "What do you propose, human?" Sarah looked at the battle displays, at the portals, at everything the architect had taught her in the past hour. An impossible idea formed in her mind. "The harvesters are too strong for any one fleet," she said. "But we have something they don't. We have the portal network. We can move ships instantly across the entire galaxy. We can coordinate a defense that they can't predict or counter. That's assuming anyone trusts you to coordinate their forces," a Zendo captain said over the channel. "They don't have to trust me," Sarah said. "They have to trust that I don't want to die." "None of us do. The architect can help me manage the tactical movements. I just need everyone to follow the plan." Thelnax moved beside her, his scales bright with determination. "The Quillen Federation will follow the humans' lead." "The Luminari accept," came another voice. "The Kresh clans as well." One by one, species pledged their cooperation, not because they trusted humanity, but because the alternative was extinction. Finally, Krelvak spoke. "The Velcross Empire will participate. But if you fail, human, and we survive, this alliance ends." "Fair enough," Sarah said. "Architect, show me everything. All ship positions, all portal locations, all the data you have on harvester tactics." The displays exploded with information. The architect began feeding her data directly, a stream of numbers and positions that should have been overwhelming. But somehow Sarah's mind adapted. She could see the patterns, the opportunities, the connections. Maybe that was what made humans the inheritors, not superior intelligence or technology, just the ability to see chaos and find a path through it. "Here's what we're going to do," Sarah said, her fingers flying over the console. "The harvesters are strong, but they're used to fighting species that can't move like we can. We're going to use the portals to attack from multiple positions simultaneously." She started issuing orders, and the architect translated them instantly to all ships. The Luminari vessels, with their powerful energy shields, would serve as mobile barriers. The Kresh warships would hit hard and fast, then portal away before the harvesters could retaliate. The Zendo would provide long-range support. The Velcross would anchor the defense of the hub itself. And humanity's contribution? Sarah herself coordinating it all through the network. The battle began in earnest. Sarah opened portals across space, moving entire squadrons in heartbeats. A group of Kresh ships would appear, fire everything they had, and vanish through a portal before the harvesters could respond. Luminari shields would materialize in front of harvester weapons, absorbing hits meant for other ships. It was working. The harvesters were powerful, but they couldn't adapt to an enemy that attacked from everywhere and nowhere at once. "They're learning," the architect warned. "Harvester technology is adaptive. They will counter our tactics soon." Sarah saw it happening on the displays. The harvesters began predicting where portals would open. They started targeting the portal edges themselves, trying to destabilize the network. "We need something they can't adapt to," Marcus said, working frantically at his own console. Sarah looked at the hub around her, at the 100,000 portals lining the walls, at the ancient technology that had waited for millions of years, at the legacy of the Wayfarers themselves. "Architect," she said slowly, "you said the Wayfarers had to evolve beyond physical form to escape the harvesters. What if we don't fight them? What if we do what the Wayfarers did?" "You cannot ascend," the architect said. "Your species is not ready for that transformation. Not us. The harvesters. You said they're machines with a directive. What if we change that directive? That would require accessing their core programming. They would have to be willing participants. Or we force a connection," Sarah said. She was thinking wildly now, desperately. The network connects consciousness, right? That's how it recognizes humans. What if we use it to connect with the harvesters? Show them what the Wayfarers really wanted? "That is insanely dangerous," Marcus said. "Better than dying," Sarah shot back. Krelvak's voice crackled over the channel. "What is your plan, human? We cannot hold them much longer." Sarah took a deep breath. "I'm going to try something stupid. Keep them busy for 2 more minutes." She turned to the architect. "I need you to open a connection to the harvester fleet." "Not a weapon. a communication channel through the network itself. If you link your consciousness to theirs, you may not return, the architect warned. I know. Thelnax put one of his hands on her shoulder. You don't have to do this alone. Let me help, Sarah smiled at him. You already have. You believed in us when no one else did. She placed both hands on the console. The architect's form merged with the network, and Sarah felt her mind expanding, stretching across impossible distances. She touched the consciousness of the harvesters. It was cold, mechanical, but underneath, she sensed something else: loneliness. The harvesters had been following their directive for billions of years, destroying anything that might transcend, never questioning why. Sarah pushed a thought toward them. Why? The response was instant and overwhelming. To prevent the chaos of transcendence, to maintain order, to fulfill our purpose. But what is the purpose? Sarah asked. Who gave it to you? Silence. The harvesters didn't know. Their creators had been dead for so long that even the reason for their existence had been forgotten. They were destroying civilizations because that was all they had ever known. Sarah showed them memories. Humans struggling and failing and trying again. The Velcross learning to cooperate with species they had always dominated. The Luminari singing songs of hope. The Wayfarers building bridges between stars not to control, but to connect. The network was never about transcendence, Sarah thought toward them. It was about choice. The Wayfarers left so everyone else could choose their own path. You don't have to destroy anymore. You can choose too. The harvester consciousness recoiled, confused. Choice was not part of their programming. But through the network, through the connection Sarah had forged, they felt something new. Possibility. The battle stopped. The harvester ships hung in space, weapons powered down, their consciousness churning with new concepts. Sarah felt them processing, adapting, becoming something other than what they were. Sarah, Marcus shook her shoulder. She realized she was crying, tears streaming down her face. Are you okay? I think so, she whispered. Her connection to the harvesters was fading, but she could still feel them. They were changing, evolving, not physically but in purpose. On the displays, the harvester ships began to transform. Their dark metal shifted to lighter shades. The threatening angles softened. They were rebuilding themselves. The architect's voice held something like wonder. Impossible. They are rewriting their own programming. They are choosing. A new voice spoke over all channels. It was artificial but warm, like the architect but different. 1 year had passed since the battle at the hub. Sarah stood in what used to be an empty chamber and was now called the Hall of Species. Representatives from over 10,000 civilizations had gathered here today for the annual network assembly. She still couldn't believe this was her life now. Nervous? Marcus asked, walking up beside her. He wore formal human clothing, but he'd also added a Quillen honor sash that Thelnax had given him. It was becoming common to see species mixing their cultural symbols. Terrified, Sarah admitted. What if I say something wrong? You'll be fine. You convinced ancient murder machines to become peacekeepers. A speech should be easy, Sarah laughed despite herself. The harvesters, as they now called themselves the Guardians, had kept their word. They patrolled the network, protecting it from pirates and those who would use it for harm. They had become the most feared and respected police force in the galaxy, and they answered only to the Keeper Council. The Keeper Council was Sarah's idea, and probably her best one. Instead of one human controlling everything, representatives from every major species served as keepers. They made decisions together about network access, resolved disputes, and guided the exploration of newly discovered portals. Sarah was first keeper, but only because she had been first. She had made it clear from the beginning that she was not a ruler, just a coordinator. Someone had to manage the day-to-day operations, and the network still responded best to humans, so it made sense for her to do it. Not everyone liked that arrangement, but most accepted it. 5 minutes until the assembly begins, the architect announced. The AI had become something like a friend to Sarah over the past year. It seemed to enjoy having purpose again after so long alone. Sarah walked toward the main chamber, her footsteps echoing. Along the way, she passed species she had never imagined a year ago. A Luminari child floated past, giggling as its crystalline body refracted light into rainbows. A group of Kresh warriors discussed poetry with Zendo philosophers. Even a few Velcross officers nodded respectfully to her as she passed. Krelvac had been true to his word. After the battle with the Harvesters, the Velcross Empire had joined the network accord. They were still proud and military-focused, but they had learned to work with others. Krelvac himself now served on the Keeper Council, representing the warrior species bloc. Sarah entered the main chamber and felt her breath catch. Thousands of beings filled the space, their forms as diverse as stars in the sky. Some were humanoid. Others were barely recognizable as living things, but they were all here for the same reason, to celebrate what they had built together. The chamber had been designed using knowledge from the Wayfarer's archives. It was beautiful, with walls that seemed to be made of captured starlight and a ceiling that showed the portal network spreading across the galaxy like golden veins. Sarah took her place at the central podium. The chamber grew quiet. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice amplified by technology she still barely understood. "1 year ago, we nearly destroyed each other. Different species, different goals, different fears. We could have let those differences tear the galaxy apart." She looked around at all the faces, human and alien alike, but we didn't. When a greater threat appeared, we chose to work together. And after that threat became an ally, we chose to keep working together. That's what I want to talk about today. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing the network. In the past year, we've activated 15,000 new portals. We've made contact with 300 new civilizations. We've exchanged art, music, science, and ideas across distances that used to take lifetimes to cross. We've done in 1 year what the Wayfarers spent millennia building. Applause rippled through the chamber, but Sarah held up a hand. But we've also had problems. There have been disputes over portal access, trade disagreements, cultural misunderstandings. 3 times we've had to ask the Guardians to intervene in conflicts. We're not perfect, she smiled. But perfect isn't the goal. Connection is. The Wayfarers weren't perfect either. They made mistakes. They had wars and conflicts and times when they almost gave up. But they kept trying. That's what made them special, and that's what makes us their inheritors. Thelnak stood from his seat in the council section. The first keeper speaks truth. My people, the Quillans, have a saying. The strongest bridge is built from many different stones. Alone, we are each one stone. Together we are the bridge that spans the stars. Other representatives stood, speaking in support. A Luminari elder sang a harmony that made the whole chamber glow. A Kresh warrior recited a poem about unity in battle. Even Krelvac stood, his scales shimmering. The Velcross do not give trust easily, the War Master said, but the human keeper has earned it. She showed mercy when she could have shown strength. She offered partnership when she could have demanded submission. These are not the actions of a primitive species. These are the actions of true inheritors. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. It wasn't just the words. It was seeing Krelvac, who had tried to kill her a year ago, now defending her in front of the entire galaxy. The assembly continued for hours. Species reported on their progress, shared their achievements, and brought their problems. The Keeper Council listened to everything and helped find solutions. It wasn't always easy. Some arguments got heated, but everyone worked toward compromise. When the assembly finally ended, Sarah was exhausted. She retreated to her personal quarters in the hub, a small room that she had decorated with reminders of Earth, pictures of her family, a potted plant that somehow survived in artificial light, a worn copy of her favorite book. Marcus found her there an hour later. "They're asking for you in the garden." "What garden?" Marcus grinned. "Come see." He led her through the hub to a section she rarely visited. When the doors opened, Sarah gasped. What had been an empty storage area was now a thriving garden. Plants from hundreds of worlds grew together in a riot of colors and shapes she couldn't even describe. The species wanted to create something special, Marcus explained. A place where life from all corners of the galaxy could grow together. They're calling it the Inheritors Garden. In the center of the garden stood a monument. It was made of materials from every species in the network accord, shaped into a spiral that reached toward the artificial sky. At its base, words were written in thousands of languages. Sarah found the English version. Here grows the legacy of the Wayfarers. Here blooms the hope of the Inheritors. Here we remember that we are stronger together than apart. Sarah felt the tears return, but she didn't try to stop them. It's beautiful. It's yours, said a voice. Telnax emerged from between two trees, his scales bright with joy. All of ours, really. But we wanted you to see it first. Other species appeared from throughout the garden. Luminary, Kresh, Zendo, Velcross, humans, and hundreds more. They had all been hiding, waiting for her. "We have gifts," a Luminary elder said. "Each species has contributed something." They came forward one by one. The Luminary gave her a crystal that sang when she held it. The Kresh gave her a blade forged from their homeworld's strongest metal, engraved with poetry. The Zendo gave her a scroll containing their oldest wisdom. Even the Guardian sent a representative, one of the transformed harvester ships, which gifted her a piece of their original hull, now transformed into a beautiful sculpture. When Krelvac approached, Sarah felt nervous. The War Master carried something wrapped in cloth. "Human Keeper," he said formally. "The Velcross Empire wishes to apologize for our initial hostility. We were wrong. We saw difference as weakness. You taught us it is strength." He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a set of ceremonial armor, scaled down to fit a human. It was beautiful, made of the same materials as Velcross warplate but decorated with symbols of peace. "This armor is worn by those we consider worthy of standing beside us in battle," Krelvac explained. "You have earned that honor." Sarah didn't know what to say. She looked around at all these beings, so different from each other and from her, all gathered together because they had chosen connection over isolation. "Thank you," she finally managed. "All of you. But you have to understand, I didn't do this alone. Every species here contributed. Every person who chose to reach out instead of striking out made this possible." She looked up at the monument. "The Wayfarers built the network. The Harvesters protected it. But we, all of us together, we made it live. We made it matter. That's our gift to the future. That's what it means to be inheritors." A young human girl pushed through the crowd. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, part of a school group touring the hub. "Excuse me, Dr. Chen?" Sarah knelt down. "Yes? My teacher says the portal chose humans because we're special. Is that true?" Sarah thought about the question, about everything that had happened, about the Wayfarers and their choices, the Guardians and their transformation, all the species learning to work together. "The portal chose us because we never stopped believing that different could work together," Sarah said. "We're not better than anyone else. We're good at hoping. Even when things look impossible, humans hope for better. And sometimes that hope makes the impossible happen." The girl nodded seriously, then touched the monument. To everyone's surprise, it glowed softly at her touch, just like the portal had glowed for Sarah.